Welcome to Moments with Marianne. I'm so delighted we're spending this time here today. We have a very powerful show coming right up with two very special guests. Our first guest today is Shannon Kaiser, and she's here to talk with us about her new book, Joy Seeker. Let go of what's holding you back so you can live the life you're made for. Now, Shannon is the best-selling author of 5 books on the psychology of happiness and fulfillment. And she's an international life coach, speaker, and retreat leader, which helps people trust and believe in themselves so they can live their highest potential. She's been named a top 100 woman to watch in wellness by Mind Body Green and your go-to happiness booster by Health Magazine. She's also been recognized as a must-follow Instagram account for inspiration by Entrepreneur Magazine and a top Facebook account for daily motivation by Mind Body Green. Her work has been featured in Cosmopolitan, Elle, Health, Vogue, Women's Health, Self, Shape, Entrepreneur, Good Housekeeping, and many more. So let's welcome to the show, Shannon Kaiser.
Hi, it's so good to be here.
Oh my goodness, I'm so delighted that we get to spend time together again, and you have a new book coming out tomorrow. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's great to talk to you again, and tomorrow's an exciting day. Joy Seeker is coming out in the world.
Oh my gosh. Once I got a copy of this book, I could not put it down, and there's so much great information in this. Oh my goodness. I just love this book.
Thank you. That's so sweet. Thank you. Yeah, it's a very special project because the journey that I actually went on when I wrote it was transformational. So that's my hope for readers.
Well, why don't we start there? Because we've had you on the show before talking about your other books. You've got some really great, inspiring, life-changing books. What inspired you to write this one?
It's interesting because I wasn't planning on writing it. And funny enough, the saddest day of my life inspired the Joy Seeker project, which is really what it was in the beginning. I actually suffered through a loss. My dog died, and he was my best friend. And I know, loss and grief, it has many different forms, and I didn't know what my grief was going to be. But when my dog died, his name was Tucker. He was a rescue. I actually adopted him when I was diagnosed with clinical depression 10 years ago. And I also was suffering from eating disorders. I had extreme self-hate. I hated my job. So he came into my life and really became my beacon of light. And I attributed a lot of my changes in my life because I left my corporate job. I left depression. I found self-love. And I started to become a writer and a coach with him by my side. He was like my golden ticket to happy. So when he passed on from old age, I realized that I had been placing my joy outside of myself, and I fell into another depression after all that work that I did to find my happy. And that's when I realized, I said, I have to learn how to find joy within myself instead of relying on anything outside of me. And that's when the Joy Seeker idea and the book really was birthed.
I'm so sorry for your loss. I've lost a dog as well, and they become our little buddies or part of our family. It's really, really tough when they leave. And,
they are family. Yeah.
And then to look at that and come to the realization that you are actually putting your joy and happiness outside of yourself. That's a real aha moment.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting because I feel the grief, as I said, takes many different forms, but interesting enough, we know a lot of times, sometimes death happens and we don't know when it's going to happen, but he was an older dog, so I could see it happening, but it wasn't until he actually passed on that gravity of that weight of he is gone, it really hits you. And so then I had to ask myself the questions. Who am I really? What do I really want? And I asked myself a question. I actually started, as I fell into my deeper depression, it was only a couple weeks, couple months depression, as I talk about in the book, but it led to a deeper layer of me. And I went and did more research on happiness again and fulfillment. And I found a study that was actually done in the UK. Maybe you've heard of it because it turned into a book. The top regrets of the dying. And the number one regret is I wish I would have lived a life true to myself, not the one others expected of me. And in that moment, I realized that I was still making choices for so many other people. I was living my life as by expectations, what society expects of us, family expectations, partners. And I said, wow, I need to go inward. what do I really want for my life? And I encourage anybody listening, all of us, and that's what the book does. It asks you to really get clear about who you are and what you want. And then I said, what have I always wanted to do, but I haven't given myself permission to do? And this is a great journal question for anyone who's kind of looking for more clarity. And in that moment, I said, I want to travel the world full time, because this was a dream that was in my heart for over 2 decades. And then I said, well, why am I not doing that? And of course, excuses. I realized as a coach and writer, I can work from anywhere. So I set out for almost an entire year journey to travel the world, work and write. And that's when the Joy Seeker book was written, while I was traveling the world, living the biggest dream in my heart.
Wow, I really applaud you because, it's so easy. I mean, loss is loss, regardless if it's, a beloved pet, if it's a family member, whatever. Loss is loss. And to come to a
That's
place
true.
where you're really kind of diving into it and going, gosh, because we all get depressed at one point or another. That's a natural part of grief and loss. How do I get myself out of this? And then to ask those profound questions. I mean, that's a game changer.
It is a game changer. And I think a lot of us, we don't ask the questions, or we don't give ourselves permission to not know the answers. Because at first, I knew the answer of my big dream. But then the questions of, well, how is it going to happen? Do you have enough money? All of that. And I think if we don't know the answers, sometimes we shy away. And what I talk about again in the Joy Seeker is also not knowing the answers is part of the experiment of life. It's part of enjoying life. It's part of getting deeper into fulfillment, because we learn the way on the way. And that's what I learned. And that's a whole big part of our life and feeling more joy, is to realize you can still step forward on your dream, even if you don't know all of the pieces to it.
Oh, I love that. And in your book, you also talk about, if kind of letting go of some of these belief systems that don't work for us and that keep us stuck. And one of them is thinking that we don't matter and we don't fit in. And how many
Yeah.
people feel that way? I mean, my goodness. I mean, there have been times in my life I feel like that.
I know, and I actually think it's something that so many of us feel, because we live in this world that tries to make us fit. I used to look at magazine covers and feel like, well, I don't look like them, and that was in part what caused some of my depression. And I feel like sometimes we get into situations where we don't understand other people. And that's kind of part of what I talk about, and what I think, I'm so glad you brought this up, because we feel like we don't matter. And because this is a belief that we have, it actually creates our experiences. So our beliefs are always things that come to us, usually in a moment. Usually happens when we create our beliefs from experiences, and usually the experiences are sometimes from traumatic events or painful events from our childhood. So if somebody on the playground made fun of you and said you're stupid, then all of a sudden you maybe feel like, I don't matter. And that's what happened to me. Or maybe something happened in the home where your father or your mother did something. We create a belief instantly. It's a human protection mechanism to kind of protect us, to never have to feel that pain again. So then we go through our life with this mask. It's almost like this false version of us, this belief system that's trying to protect us. And so I take people through a process of identifying the beliefs, and a process to really get to the core of it. Because once you see where that belief was started, and you see how it's helped you, but also hindered you, then you can transform that belief into a more positive one. Because the truth is, I know now that I do matter and I belong. I did not know that before I started the Joy Seeker process.
That's such a huge realization, because I think a lot of times when people get into this place where they feel like they're not good enough because of whatever backstory is playing from their parents or teachers,
Yeah.
whatever, experiences that have happened in life, they get to this place where they feel like there's no out.
Yeah, it's true, and it is a lot. I like that you said in your head, because a lot of times we feel it inside, and it's a very internal experience, and it's a very isolating experience, and so that actually makes it even more intense. And so, reaching out for help, journaling, reading books, like the Joy Seeker or any book, coming together in community. I found a way through this is to really come together with a sense of community, because what we really crave is belonging. What we really want is connection.
Mm, that's so profound, and it's true, because I mean, you look at today, we're going through this period in history where people are connected more than ever, but feeling more lonely than ever before. And to be able to be in a place where you feel like you have some kind of community or connecting, how important is that?
It's so important. It's interesting because I set out to travel the world, and I visited 18 different countries, and I worked from, I think it was 28 different cities. And about halfway through my trip, and I share this in the book too, I was realizing, wow, I thought I really wanted to live my dream and travel the world. But what is it about that dream that I want? And so traveling the world represented finding a place that I belonged. It represented finding connection. It really represented connecting with humanity. So it was much deeper. And I think if we all have these dreams, we think about what it is we really want. Most of the time, it's a core value of ours that we're not really getting. I wasn't feeling connected to where I was. I wanted more community. I wanted more meaning. And so once I identified that, I was able to really seek that out, and it changed. And that's one of the ways it's called Joy Seeker, because we have to seek what it is we truly, truly want. And ultimately, as you said, so many of us, I feel right now, are starving for attention. The social media culture has kind of created that, but it's also just the technology, the world we live in. We're moving so fast. Things are happening so fast that we want more meaning. We want more connection. And so it's about just being aware of that and really finding the true meaning, the true connections, the authentic connections, not the superficial ones.
And that kind of brings me to my next question, because in your book, you talk about how, you know, people often get stuck thinking that money is going to solve all their issues. Once I have enough money, I can travel, or once I have enough money, I can do all these things. What are your thoughts on that?
Yes, I had to put a section about money because we can't really talk about fulfillment if we're not talking about money, because so often we worry about money. We think about it. I don't have enough. I want it. And that's the number one thing I hear from my coaching clients when it comes to why aren't you doing what you want? I don't have enough money. But my mom actually asked me this when I first left corporate. I was super depressed, just coming out of the corporate, starting to get clarity that I wanted to be a writer. And I said, I really want to do this writing boot camp. You learn about the industry. And I remember sitting there with her, and she said, well, why aren't you? And I said, I have money. And she said, well, what would it look like? Where is that money? I said, well, I have money in savings, but because I'm unemployed right now, I need that. And she said, well, what if you just took action on it? And I took action on it, and I was like, she's right. It's a perspective shift. And I took action on it, and everything changed. Obviously, I invested in myself. I showed the universe this is important to me. I met more contacts. I started to get paid as a freelance writer, and it started my whole career. And today I'm so fulfilled. I get to do what I love from anywhere in the world. And so sometimes it's our ego and our fear that's saying you don't have enough. You can't do this. And so what we want to do is just really get honest with ourselves and say, well, what can I do? Well, maybe I can invest in myself in another way. Maybe I can just put money down, because as soon as you do, the universe will reward you. It's interesting how that happens, but it's like a law of the universe. And so if we're just staying stuck in our worry and our fear, we're not taking action. Now, it's important to be responsible, and I talk about that in the book too. But really what it is mostly fear is blocking us from fulfillment, and we use the excuse that I don't have enough money. Now, I know a lot of us are working really hard. Some of us have many jobs. So it's important to be balanced, but there's a process that goes through in the book. And so what I really think is important is to just start by being aware. Start to see what your relationship is with money. And when you go to spend something, whether it's a coffee in the morning or paying a bill, find the joy in it. And Louise Hay, she actually talked about this in one of her books. She used to struggle with money too, the late Louise Hay. And it was interesting because this was transformational for me. She said, I used to hate paying bills, but then I started to say, thank you, money. I'm so glad I have you. She would kiss her bills and be thankful. And that energy exchange is magnificent. Being grateful for what you're spending your money on is a great first step. And then also focusing on, does this bring me joy? And if it doesn't, don't spend your money on it.
Well, you pretty much just answered one of the questions I had for you, because, it's so interesting. A lot of times we feel so disconnected with our joy. And I love how you talk about being able to reconnect with that, because it seems like sometimes it's a treasure map, we'll never get to where the pot of gold is.
Yeah, I'm so glad you said that. Yep. I'm glad you said that, because that's That's important. But yeah, keep going. I didn't know if you had that question.
Well, and so you touched on worry and wonder, and I would love for you to explain how can we make those kind of paradigm shifts? Because a lot of times people are like, well, okay, so I'm worried about my bills, and you want me to reconnect with my joy and kisses, but I'm worried. So how do I get to this place where I can feel, this gratitude and joy for that?
Yes, thank you, because this is an important part, because I do understand that sometimes worry, I used to be a chronic worrier. In fact, I think it was part of my depression and my anxiety that I suffered from. I think the average person, you know, 20 to 40% of us are constantly in a state of worry. And that's, equals to, I think it's like 28 days of the year straight we're worried. And so worry definitely affects us. And I have learned through doing more research and also really studying both my life coaching clients and my own, when I went on the Joy Seeker, I call it the Joy Seeker journey, and wrote this book, really what worry is. Worry is a form of fear, and worry is actually more prevalent in people who are want to be in control. So the more in control we want to be, usually the more worry, because the less control we feel we have. So a lot of times what worry will do, it comes into your life because it's trying to protect you. So our brain will say, I'm worried about this situation. And whether you're worried about someone else or worried about your bills, worried about your own life, because what our brain is doing in our mind is trying to protect us for if that worst case scenario happens, we won't be blindsided, which is really important to understand, because most of the time that worst situation will not happen. But our brain is going there because we really want to try to maintain any fallout that we can. And so what I had tried to do and practiced, and what I do, it works really well actually, is I turned my worry into wonder. And this is a simple thing you can do. Just pull out a journal, write it down, or simply say it in your mind. And you literally say, what am I worried about? I'm worried I don't have enough bills to pay. I don't have enough money to pay my bills this month. And you say, wonder. Well, I wonder how the universe is going to support me. I wonder how I can show up more fully for, maybe I want to go apply for a job. Like, you turn it to a wonder statement of getting into a place of possibilities and opportunities versus fear, lack, shame, and guilt. This could turn into, I worry that I'm going to be alone forever. I haven't dated in many years. And you say, I wonder what it's going to be like to meet the love of my life. I worry that I am going to stay on meds for the rest of my life, and I'm going to be in chronic pain. I wonder, and you can basically do this with every single thing, I wonder what it's going to feel like when I am healthy, vibrant, and free. And you can have fun with this. Do it in your mind. I was able to transform my limiting beliefs around money, around my lack of self-love, and around me feeling like I'm going to be alone forever, and not find my soulmate. And then I even applied it to my career with finding the right publisher for this book, and we're finding the perfect team to help bring this book to life. I think we can have fun with it. And that's the point. We feel disconnected from our joy, but getting into the wonder it's like a child. We were in pure wonder. Getting back to that energy is really what it's all about.
What a really empowering place to come from, because we all have worries, but being able to make those shifts where you can say, hey, I wonder how the universe is going to support me. The energy is totally different, and there's unlimited possibilities in.
Totally different. Yes. And it's exciting. It becomes fun. It becomes more playful. It's a very fun process.
Love it. In your book, you talk about discovering the poetry within. What does that mean?
Yes, one of my favorite parts. So the poetry within is something we all have. Every single one of us has something that is unique to us. And I actually got this idea from another poet, and her name's escaping me, but she wrote the Milk Book. It's black. It's black on the cover. I can see the cover. But she had an Instagram post, and she was talking about, I love writing poetry. I love it so much. It is my joy. And as I was reading that, I said, wow, every single person has poetry in them. And it's not necessarily writing, but it's that thing that brings them so much joy that when they do it, they lose track of all time. They feel like this is why I am here, to experience this pure pleasure. And it is about getting us back to pleasure. So for me, my poetry is writing. I love writing so much. It is so fulfilling. And then sharing it with people. Every single one of us has something that lights us up. And a lot of times we don't know what it is because we haven't given ourselves permission to be who we really are. But every single one of us, when we get honest with ourselves, does know, and we can find it through the process of discovering the poetry within, which is you can do journaling questions. You can go on a curiosity kind of adventure where you ask yourself, what am I curious about? One of the best ways to find the poetry within is, what did you love to do? Like love beyond reason to do when you were a child. What did you do with your free time? Some people go play outside. I used to sit outside in the field at recess and write poetry. I used to write, and a lot of the kids made fun of me for that. They really did, because they were all playing, ball. But I wrote at a very young age. And then I got away from it. I went into the corporate world. I went into advertising, and that's when my depression happened, because I was straying away from who I really was. So all of this is really about authenticity, going inward to discover your true self, because that is the only way to fully be fulfilled. We can try to do things on the outside of ourselves, do all the programs, coaches, manifest, and all that. But if we're not looking at the true part, the core of us, then all of it will be fleeting. And so this is a very profound process, and a beautiful one, because it is true transformation. And the poetry within is with you forever, because it is you.
How powerful that is, because how often do you hear people, even saying, hey, I love myself, can be a really difficult thing for them to say, and they don't really feel that that's authentic. But coming to a place where you can love who you are, what you're all about, is you're able to really shine in the world in a way that no one else can.
And I think that's a key point. It is about shining, because a lot of this is, and I start the whole entire book with saying, we're living in a world right now where there's a lot of fear, hate, separation, anxiety, and the tendency is to retreat, to say, I don't matter, to say, well, I can't do anything. But what if there is another way? What if instead of closing down, we opened up? What if instead of chasing happiness, we choose and allow joy? What if instead of running from ourselves, we say, I accept myself? And this process of shining your light is so magnificent, because it is it's the thing we've all been running and chasing. We've been chasing happiness for years. We've been looking for self-love. But what it really is it's not about having to do more. It's just about being who you are and allowing that, and being unapologetic about that. Because what does happen, though, and the number one reason we really don't, is we have a fear of being judged, or what other people will think. Well, how can I be myself? What if I'm not accepted? And we kind of live in a culture, in a world that, we want to fit in, but at the same time, we want to be who we are. So how can you fit in if you are who you are? And what I really learned, what the Joy Seeker book takes you through, it is a journey. And what you go through is a journey of really knowing who you are is exactly what the world needs. Because we need more people to be alive, to be connected to themselves. Because number one, you feel better. When you feel better, the people around you feel better, but you're also putting more love and joy into the world. And the world needs that right now. But ultimately, you realize the more you are, the more you show, the more your life will flow. Like the more the right people will come to you, instead of the kind of half friends or the half people. You're in a job that's just okay, but there could be more. That more is your true self being actualized and expressed in the world.
I love that. I mean, that's so true, because when you look at being able to be in a place where you feel completely fulfilled, I mean, a lot of that has to do with the work we do ourselves to get to a place where we're truly authentic.
It's so true. And it's interesting, because I set out to travel the world, and I was like, this dream is the biggest dream that's been in my heart for over 2 decades. And it's the Joy Seeker book is not about my travel at all, but it's how we live this process we're talking about. And so while I was actually going through it, I wrote about it, and it became the lessons that I needed to learn. And the biggest lesson was, where we are is exactly where we need to be. And we try so hard to get there. We try to get to the next thing, and these expectations, when we do get there, this doesn't feel like what I thought. And a lot of times we do that in our journey to fulfillment. We say, I want this. And so when I said, I want to travel the world, I'm going to do it. This is the biggest dream. So think about the biggest dream in your heart of hearts. You go and actualize. And then I was like, this feels not like what I thought. And that's when I recognized, whoa, the issue isn't the dreams. It's the fact that inside of me, I feel like there's something missing. And so that's what I had to look at. And so when we talk about fulfillment or making our dreams come true, it's an external thing still. It's still outside of ourselves. So once I recognized that joy truly was within me, happiness was within me, fulfillment is already here, you bring that to every situation. You bring that to the next dream that you're manifesting. You bring that to the next relationship you cultivate. You bring that to the next job. That is the true power. That's the authentic. You will shine so bright because you are being what you are, and you're not needing something outside of yourself to really, really save you.
My goodness, we can talk for hours, Shannon. That is an easy thing for us to do. I think I have time for one more question here.
Okay, yeah, this is fun.
Yeah, for our listeners and the readers of your book, what do you want them to take away from this?
This is a beautiful question. Thank you. I think the most important thing about the Joy Seeker book and the process is to know that you do matter and that you are meant to be here in the world as you are. And so this gives you permission to be who you are unapologetically and be so proud of who you are that you shine so bright and you are fulfilled. And all of the stuff that used to bother you, the fears, the insecurities, the expectations, they are stripped away because you are so connected to who you are at a core level. It's about authenticity. It's about authentic living. It's about you. It's a journey to the true you.
Well, Shannon, my goodness. I know you've got a lot of events coming up starting tomorrow when your book is released. Where are you going to start first?
Yes. So I am based in Portland, Oregon, so we have a book launch event tomorrow night. I'm also doing a workshop in New York City. I'll be in Seattle, possibly all over. We're creating events every day, even though the book tour is already set. More is coming, so you could easily go to playwiththeworld.com, which is my website, and go to events. I would love to see. I love hugging people, love to hug you in person. And it's starting. It's happening. Here we are.
Well, hey, congratulations. And where can our listeners connect with you and be part of your community? And of course, they have time to pre-order the book or show up at one of these events and buy the book and have you sign it there. So where can they find out all about this?
Yes, you can definitely go to my website, playwiththeworld.com, and you can get a free meditation, audio meditation to help you live your ideal life, or social media. I'm posting positive messages every day to help you on your journey on Facebook and Instagram. Shannon Kaiser, Kaiser. It's at Shannon Kaiser Writes, the author page, so WRITES.
Awesome. Well, Shannon, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show with us here today.
Thanks. It's been great.
Well, thank you, Shannon, and congratulations with your new book coming out tomorrow. Joy Seeker is available at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and all indie retailers. Well, we're going to pause here for a quick break. You've been listening to Moments with Marianne. We'll be right back after these messages.
Internationally recognized and award-winning author Judy Goodman works and teaches outside the box of limited thinking. Working with people from every walk of life, her goal is to empower you to be the best you can be, no matter what the challenge is. Born with the gift of seeing beyond our normal vision, she has an extraordinary gift of working with every challenge. Teaching beyond conventional wisdom, her work is described as life-changing. Visit judygoodman.com. That's judygoodman.com.
There comes a moment when you realize you're somewhere special, when you discover that each beautiful creature that you see has been rescued from a life of absolute horror and brought to this incredibly free place. Here's where their lives were forever changed and where yours will as well. Discover over 500 tigers, bears, and lions at the brand new visitor center at the Wild Animal Sanctuary just outside Denver. For more information, visit wildanimalsanctuary.org. Discover true freedom at the Wild Animal Sanctuary.
There are nearly 2 million Americans living with amputation. Many live right here in San Antonio. Becoming an amputee can be scary, frustrating, isolating, but there's no reason to feel alone. The San Antonio Amputee Foundation is here to help support you and guide you toward resources such as home and car modifications and even prosthetic limbs. For more information or to make a donation, visit saamputee.org. We'll help you live a full, active life, one step at a time. San Antonio Amputee Foundation, healing limbs, hearts, and souls.
If not me, then who? This ethos is driving the Travis Manion Foundation to empower veterans and families of fallen heroes to develop character in future generations. In 2007, Marine First Lieutenant Travis Manion was killed in Iraq while saving his wounded teammates. Travis's legacy lives on in the 5 words he spoke before leaving for his final deployment. If not me, then who? Guided by this mantra, veterans continue their service, developing strong relationships in the community, and thrive in their post-military lives. Visit TravisManion.org and ensure the character of our nation's heroes lives on in the next generation. If not me, then who?
Welcome back to Moments with Marianne. We're here today with our next special guest, Bryn Blankinship, and she's here to share with us her new book, The Limitless Soul, Hypnoregression, Case Studies into Past, Present, and Future Lives. Now, Bryn is a certified hypnotherapist, international instructor, and author. She's also the executive director of the Braith Center located in North Carolina. So let's welcome to the show, Bryn Blankinship.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
What a joy it is to have you here and to talk about this book. I have to ask you, what inspired you to write this book?
Well, I had so many great sessions with clients that I felt like it was time to share some of the findings that were coming through in sessions. And then I also had a little nudge or two from my own guides. They were saying it was time.
So when you talk about you had some findings with clients, what does that mean? What type of work do you do?
So I am a past life regressionist, spiritual regressionist, and that's a form of hypnotherapy that is in the transpersonal style of hypnosis. And I take people on journeys into past lives and into the between to help them to awaken to the deeper part of themselves so that they can bring that awareness back and understand more about why they're here and where they're at in their life, how they could do things better. But this is from direct guidance from their soul self, their soul mind, and their spiritual team.
Well, and I know you use the term soul expression, spiritual regression. So what does that mean?
So that is a technique that I developed. Soul expression, spiritual regression is an acronym. The acronym for that is SESSOR, which is an assessment. It's an assessment session at the current stage of one's life that allows for the magnification of their soul in their current mind and body. So what's happening in these deeper states is that clients are going into the between, into the spiritual realms. They're connecting with their soul. They're connecting with spirit guides and their soul advisory council to get information to help understand where they're at. And with this information, they can review simultaneously the past and the future from the perspective of their current life. And the reason that someone would do that is so they can find and follow their soul's guidance to connect to that information, move through long-standing negative patterns that have held them back somehow, or bring forward gifts that can help them now because they have that direct access to their soul self.
That sounds like a very empowering process.
It is.
People that have beliefs or fears or different things that come up that they're not sure where they came from.
Yes. And in doing these kinds of sessions, it gives the client a chance to understand their role in creating the incarnation, the life that they're in, And when they can see that they had a hand in that, it helps them to feel more empowered in their life now and move out of that victim mode that sometimes we get into and feel stronger, understanding that you created this, you have the tools that you need to get through this, and also that help is available to help you with whatever you're dealing with, managing, overcoming, so that you can feel more fulfilled and happier. It's beautiful. Clients connect in a way that, I can feel it in the room when I'm with them, and they're sharing their experience with me because it's coming through them in that deeper state. And as that's happening, it is awe-inspiring. There are tears of joy as they connect. When you know that help is available and this is not just a random experience that you're here on this planet, it helps you to make a little more sense of things and understand more about your purpose and why you are here and what we are here to do.
When someone understands that information, how does that help them move forward?
They have more confidence. They have tools that can help them connect to that spiritual guidance. When their spirit guide comes through and shares with them more about this life, and to understand that you're being heard when you're asking for help, and then showing ways that they communicate and showing ways that they are helping, to know that you have that. So your soul advisory council is a group of wise beings that worked with you to plan out the life that you're incarnating into, all of your incarnations. And some of the members of that council, they may change out from time to time as you've moved beyond a certain theme that you're working on, or as you're needing help with a certain thing, you'll have a specialty member of that council. And as you've moved beyond something or achieved something, you may get a different member of the council, or one of them may leave. But they're here with us for many, many lifetimes, and they help with the bigger picture. And so then we have our spiritual guides, and we usually have one or two that help us with the specifics and the day-to-day. So when we are communicating, we're communicating with them more so, and also our soul. Our soul is in that room too. I say a room, but in that space where they're creating. And our role when we're down here on earth is to connect to that guidance and follow it. We have free will to follow our plan or not. And sometimes things are adjusted because others who were supposed to show up in our lives and do certain things, they changed their plan and they changed their course. And then it causes a redirect here. But when we have that connection, we can maneuver those twists and turns a little more smoothly and keep us on track, and understand that we're here for more than just the mundane. And every soul is part of that plan. Every single soul on this planet is part of that divine plan. And all souls are important, regardless of what our job is here, because we get into hierarchy here on earth that's not like it is in the spiritual realm. All souls are important in the roles that they play.
Is there a story of a regression that you'd like to share with our listeners?
Sure. The one that comes to mind is there's one that I did with a woman named Juniper, and it's spiritual rehabilitation for injured souls is the chapter in the book. And she's a free spirit. She's a very free spirit, a beautiful, beautiful individual. And sometimes she would feel that she was being judged because she would be herself, and others around her could be judgmental and critical of her when she was expressing her beliefs. And then she would feel that she didn't fit in. So she wanted to understand that. And then something was calling to her, the next steps, things that were coming forward for her to do next. And, she was also raising her children, which is a very, very important role. So when she came in for the session, she went, sometimes clients will do this. She moved into the womb and was exploring in the womb, was reconnecting with her mother, and could really feel her mother's love. She could feel her dad was happy about the pregnancy. It really helped her to reconnect to her own parents, especially now that she has her own children. And in that space in the womb, she also had the back and forth to go back into the spiritual realms and communicate those final times before the gestation period is over, and then we're in these bodies for the incarnation. So she had that freedom for her spirit to be able to go back and forth between the developing body and into the spirit world. And it was so wonderful and therapeutic. And she was told that she's a touchstone to help people remember. And in doing that, it helps people to bring healing to themselves. But that sometimes it can be uncomfortable for them, because when she's communicating of things that are fearful here on earth, it can scare someone that's closed off. And so because she's so open and aware, and she would share things, it would scare some of the people that would then become judgmental. So there was so much more that came through that session as we went along, and we found out more about her activities there in the spiritual realms. But what came out of that was her understanding that she is exactly who she's supposed to be, and that she doesn't need to change who she is to fit their critical thinking. That if anything, she's helping to open them by the awarenesses that she has. And then much more came out of that session. But it was really beautiful to watch this person transform, because she was really having doubts, about herself, and just feeling that insecurity from not fitting in. But we learned that she's not supposed to fit in, and that she doesn't need to try to make herself fit into the box that's been created by others.
And how empowering is that? Being
Yes.
able to be your true self and know, hey, you might not fit in, but you're not supposed to. Exactly.
And when we found out about her job in the spiritual realms, she works with injured and displaced souls. And it went into great detail about how she does that, and that she actually comes and incarnates on Earth to study the human condition, and then takes that knowledge back to the spiritual realms, working with those souls. The injured, the chapter is called Spiritual Rehab for Injured Souls. And there are some souls that when they return, they're not able to join with the other realms. They're segregated into an area where they can be reparented, and just because they have such denser energies because of what experiences they've had on Earth, where things have gone in another direction. And so she does some of the heavy lifting up there. She does some of the heavier work. And it was incredible. I mean, I have lots of sessions like these, but the ones that I chose for the book are the sessions where those clients gave the best description in their session of things that I've had many, many clients describe. And they described it so eloquently that it gave us another sense, more detail of the spiritual realms and all the activities that happen there.
Now, you also talk about future life case studies. What is that?
So sometimes in these sessions with clients, their guides will share with them what's coming up next. So it's not only about past lives. Sometimes it'll go into a future life, and they'll get a glimpse of something, another piece of a theme that they're working on throughout their many incarnations. Or it could also be that they've completed a theme, something that they're working with, and now they're going to move into another theme. So there's a chapter in the book where one of my clients was working on the theme of leadership. And when we had the session, and we went through several of his past lives, and his guides had a celebration for him. And they gave him a beautiful robe with all these details like a robe and a celebration, where they were celebrating him on a job well done. And he's completing in this current life, he's completing working with the different aspects of leadership. And now he's moving into creativity and moving into that. So they give him glimpses of what's coming up in future lives, working with art and creativity, which is very different from what he does in current life or was doing in current life. I think he's just retired now.
How inspiring is that to know that you can have this whole other life waiting for you?
Exactly.
And it doesn't have to be defined by what you used to do.
Right. They can be very, very different, but it's the same theme. And, I like to make sure people understand that past lives, at least the way that I do it, past lives is not about being stuck in the past. It's about getting information from your past incarnations and bringing it into your current life to help you now. Because the most important life is the one that you're in now. And as you move through this life and you go through the different experiences, it shifts the next life and the next experience that you'll have. You'll be working with the same themes and the same things. However, how you do that will shift as you're moving through the various stages of learning. And I like the word experience. Souls like to come here and experience.
Mm-hmm.
This is a chance to take that planning and try it out, come down and experience it in a body.
What are some of the most unusual experiences that you've had doing regressions?
Well, I would say that the chapter that I just mentioned is one of my favorites because it was so very different and talking about those jobs in the spirit world. There's a chapter in the book where one of my clients, what was so interesting is that when she was moving through the different realms, because the client is in the recliner sitting in front of me, I'm guiding them into a relaxed state. And as they're going into that deeper state, they're telling me what they're getting and what they're experiencing. Well, this client, as she moved through the deeper realms, it's as if she were the rocket ship moving through space. And she was having difficulty speaking. It was as if the G-force was pulling at her face. And she was going through so many layers of releasing stuff, heavy, dense, earthly stuff. And then she was met on the other side by an enlightened being who brought her to peace, she was moving to that higher realm, but it's as if she was physically the rocket getting there. And that's only happened a few times in session. But it was pretty palpable in the room. Pretty amazing, actually.
It must have just been just phenomenal to be there and, be there during that experience.
Yes. When this is happening, I'm on the edge of my seat because I don't know what's going to happen next. I know the technique. I know what has happened with, previous clients. However, I can't control what's happening. And then when it's happening, it's amazing. When I started out doing this work, you're new and you're learning different techniques and you're trying to put all that together and you want to have some sense of control. But I very quickly learned that you don't have control. You have to learn to just maneuver with whatever's coming through the client. And when I got more confidence in doing that, the most amazing things would happen with clients.
Well, that's just amazing. So when you look at helping people through different life issues or situations, you have this whole chapter in your book on grief. Is that a really common one that people come to you for?
Yes. And, it's difficult because they've lost someone that they love. And it can, it weighs them down. It weighs their spirit down. And sometimes it can be difficult for them to break through that grief, to tap into this deeper realm. And I usually ask people to wait a few months. They have a better experience in doing so. So it's not within a couple of days or a couple of weeks of the actual loss. They need some time in current life just to deal with what's happening. And then in the sessions, it moves that grief off of them and into a place where they can connect to their loved one and see that they're not truly gone. They are here, but we find different ways to connect. And, you're not going to stay 1 minute longer than you're supposed to stay here. And you're not going to go one moment before you're supposed to. But it's so difficult on Earth because Earth is the emotional planet. That's how I describe it in the book. And guides explain how this is the only planet where you come and when your loved ones pass, transition to the next phase where we're cut off from them. There are other planets that we incarnate on where you just go to another planet, but you still can communicate if you choose to with that being in a more open way. But on Earth, it's a denser landscape, and we are shut off in many ways from that loved one, although they're there trying to communicate with us. So grief is a really big one, and trying to make sense of it. There's a session with the goat herder in my book, and she was also trying to make sense because her daughter had been murdered. So she lost a loved one, and it was very difficult managing that.
It must be. I mean, that's got to be a really difficult thing to go through. And I can see where people are doing regressions where it's helping them also being able to connect with their loved ones in ways that they probably thought they couldn't.
Yes. And, the client often is greeted by loved ones, as a welcoming committee. Sometimes they're greeted by their spiritual guide and go right into a healing space. And then other times they're greeted by loved ones that are there to say, hey, welcome back. And those loved ones are living and deceased. See, our soul resides in the spiritual realms and then sends a piece of itself here into these bodies. So that's how someone that's alive can also be there to greet the client in the spiritual realms. But it's wonderful when a loved one that has passed greets you and you can reconnect to that energy. It's just really powerful and uplifting, and letting the clients know that they're not alone. They're here on purpose, for a purpose, and finding out more about what that purpose is. Why are we here?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What reason? And you address other things as well, which I was really surprised about. You talk about weight. You talk about maybe negative money patterns. Mm-hmm. How does regression help those things?
Well, there are all kinds of issues that people are working with, and money and the theme of managing money, having it, not having it. That's something that affects your ability to maneuver in the world and how you relate to others. So that's a chapter that I addressed in the book. And weight, our physical bodies, we take on dense bodies and lighter bodies depending on the incarnation and what we're here to do, and the families that we choose to incarnate into because of what they're going to give us or not give us. And so when you're preoccupied with weight, that can distract you from what you're really here to do. And also, weight in some situations can be about blocked creativity. What are you waiting for? What's weighing on you? It could be also like a cushion that cushions between you and the people around you. As to kind of keep you in a buffer, to keep you at an arm's length, to keep people away. So there's a chapter in there that I talked specifically about that, and the gentleman that was told to put his passion into his work, and that would help move him forward. That's what he was waiting for.
When we look at it, in each of the chapters, you have an exercise list for people to use. Why was that important to include in the book?
Well, people ask me, what can I do? Like after the session, what can I do to keep that connection open? Sometimes people ask me before their sessions, are there some things that I could be doing? And I added those exercises at the end of each chapter so that the reader could start the process of opening up and also recognizing when they're in touch with that soul's guidance and their spiritual guides. Reading a story here and there with those connections, and then recognizing in yourself those times where you've been redirected and guided and helped. But the guides aren't here to tell us what to do. We're not puppets for them. They're here to assist us and nudge us gently into the direction. But we also have free will. And so these exercises are there to help the reader open up and connect. Because you can do this in a session. It's very powerful to do this in a session. But there's some people that are not going to be able to make it in for a session, And I do see people from all over the world. And I also teach hypnosis. And my student base is international. But I also recognize that there are people that won't make it in. So that was a way to start that process of opening up. And there's a tree meditation in there that's one of my favorites. And I've actually been doing that since I was a very young girl, where you sit under a tree and align your back, let the tree kind of take on the energy of whatever is worrying you or bothering you. And then as I got older, I learned how to connect to that spiritual guidance that's there. But you kind of let the tree take the weight, the burden from you. And without even sharing this with a client, there's the story about the monk and the thinking tree. And he started sharing about how in the past life as the monk, when he had lost his family, he would sit under his thinking tree because this person in the past life was an angry monk when he was younger. And he was trying to work through the anger because he was trying to be a better person and a better monk. So he would sit under his thinking tree to work through that grief. And as he did, later in life, it became a place of solitude and peace. So he was much more peaceful, and he could think back at the loss of his family without the anger, but with the joyful memories of his mother and his father and his brother. But it was a really beautiful meditation that he mentioned in session that his guides shared with him too. So I thought that would be helpful for the readers.
That way they have something to use and help them during the process before and after. And that's one of the things. You find like people get a little nervous before they have a regression, and maybe they have a lot of questions or things afterwards.
Yes. Because they're coming in, they're excited, they want this, but there's a little nervousness. Can I do this? What would happen if I can't get there? And that nervousness can actually block having a great session, because if you can't let go. But we talk a little bit beforehand, and then usually by the time we start, they're feeling much more comfortable with the whole process. Because these people that I'm seeing, I'll see them for a past life session or sometimes a second past life session. And then if they're coming for a assessor session, they would have already done the past life session with me prior, because that session is setting them up for the deeper, more open session of assessor. And, there's a lot of pressure. I call it spiritual performance anxiety, where they put that pressure on themselves to succeed. And that can interfere. So we have to just kind of step back from that and trust that your guide sent you here to have this experience. And if you can allow yourself to just let go, you can allow yourself to find out why you're here. You can let them come through and share with you those messages they're trying to get across.
Do people sometimes feel like they have a hard time trusting the information that comes across? Or just like, gosh, did I make that up? Is this just, in my psyche? Or is this really something that I really had a deep connection with?
Sometimes they will say, I wonder if I was making that up, as they're telling me what's happening, right? Mm-hmm. And so I don't try to convince them. I just say, let's just take another look, see what else is coming through, and we'll figure it out as we go along. And then as more seems to unfold in the session, they tend to have more understanding and reassurance, knowing that they are not making it up and understanding why it's coming through. I just actually had that happen the other day, where a woman was getting, instead of a flow of events, she was getting bits and pieces of several lifetimes. And I call this an all lives session that we were taking her through. And it was kind of, instead of getting a full story of each of those lifetimes, we were getting snippets of various ones. And I told her, just stay with it. We'll figure it out. We'll understand it. And then it wasn't until the very end of the assessor session that her guide came in and explained why that was being revealed to her that way and what that meant. So then it all came together, and then it all made sense.
It must be very difficult at times, trying to get that so that it makes sense.
It is. And, you can't push, you can't lead. If anything, you have to step back and let it unfold. And I've learned to trust. I really have. And the clients step away from these sessions too, with less worry and more trust and more faith, knowing that they are a part of that divine plan and understanding their place in the world and what their special skills, their gifts are in this incarnation and what they're going to need.
Mm-hmm. Without a doubt. So where can people connect with you and learn more about your book, The Limitless Soul?
Well, The Limitless Soul is available on Amazon and all national booksellers, online and in stores. And I'm actually happy to say that we're into our second printing, and I'm very excited about that. And they can reach me at my website, www.brynblankinship.com, BrynBlankinship.com. And, I manage the Braith Center in Wilmington, North Carolina. And it's a place, we have other practitioners here as well, but it's not a drop-in kind of place. It's by appointment only, because we could be with other clients. And, we just ask that you not just show up, that you have an appointment if you do come. But we'd love to have you come.
It sounds like a great place, and people can make their appointments by connecting with you at your website. Bryn, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show with us here today.
Thanks again for having me. Time just flies when we're talking.
Well, thank you, Bryn. It's been such an honor to spend this time with you and to talk about your new book, The Limitless Soul. The Limitless Soul is available at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and all indie retailers. Well, we're at the end of our time today. I would like to thank everyone for tuning in. You're listening to Moments with Marianne. And remember, make every moment count.
In a single moment, your life can change. Moments with Marianne is a transformative hour that covers an endless array of topics with the best of the best. Her guests are leaders in their fields, ranging from inspirational authors, top industry leaders, and business and spiritual entrepreneurs. Each guest is gifted and a true visionary, a recognized leader in her own work, and while teaching others to develop, refocus, and grow, Marianne will bring the best guest and sometimes a special surprise. Don't miss this. You never know just which moment will change your life forever. Moments with Marianne airs every Sunday, Monday, Thursday, and Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern and 5 p.m. Pacific Time. Make sure to tune in and visit momentswithmarianne.com for more information.